Welcome to the AI Factory podcast. Today, we're diving into a topic that feels like it's straight out of science fiction, but it's happening right now. We're talking about the incredible and kind of scary impact of artificial intelligence on how wars are fought. There's a new global arms race happening as we speak, and we're going to break down exactly what that means.
And to really set the stage for how big of a deal this is, just look at this quote. This is the Oppenheimer moment of our generation. That's a heavy statement, right? The point is, just like the atomic bomb completely changed the rules of global power, AI is poised to do the exact same thing to conflict.
So, here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we'll look at the new arms race itself. Then, we'll drop onto the algorithmic battlefield to see how it works. After that, we'll weigh the pros and cons. This is a real double-edged sword. And finally, we'll gaze into the crystal ball and see what warfare on the horizon might look like.
All right, so when you hear arms race, you're probably thinking about bigger bombs, faster jets, right? Well, that's not what this is about. This new arms race is a battle for information. It's about who has the smartest algorithms and the most powerful processing.
And it all comes down to this one key idea: decision advantage. Think of it like this. It's the ability to see what's happening, figure out what to do, and do it, all before your opponent even has time to react. In war today, speed is everything. The side that can think and act the fastest, well, that's the side that wins.
And if you think the stakes aren't really that high, well, Vladimir Putin said this back in 2017. Whoever becomes the leader in this sphere will become the ruler of the world. I mean, that one sentence pretty much tells you everything you need to know about why countries are pouring billions into this. So who are the big players in this game? Well, you've got the usual suspects. The US is pushing hard to use AI to stay on top. China, meanwhile, has a massive goal: create a world-class military by the middle of the century, with AI right at the center. And then there's Russia. They're a bit behind, but they're still trying to automate a huge chunk of their military gear.
Okay, so we've established the why, this race for dominance, but let's get into the how. What does this actually look like on the ground? On the modern battlefield, you can think of AI as the new nervous system that's rewiring the very nature of combat.
It basically all boils down to four main jobs. You've got ISR, which is all about seeing and understanding the battlefield. Think of it as the eyes. Then there's command and control, which is the brain, helping make decisions. Cybersecurity is the shield, protecting all your digital stuff. And finally, you have autonomous systems, which are kind of like the hands, taking action. You know, it used to be that some poor analyst had to sit and stare at hours and hours of fuzzy drone footage. Not anymore. AI algorithms can now scan insane amounts of data in real time. A great example is the Pentagon's Project Maven. It uses AI to automatically spot things in video feeds that a human eye would almost certainly miss, like a hidden enemy position.
Now this is a real game changer. Compressing the kill chain. That's the whole process from, hey, I think that's a target, to actually dealing with the target. A process that used to take hours can now be crunched down into seconds. The AI finds something, tracks it, and even suggests the best way to handle it, all before a human operator just has to give the final okay. It's warfare on fast forward.
Anyone who studied military history has heard of the fog of war, that state of total chaos and confusion on the battlefield. Well, AI is like a powerful fog light. It takes in all this overwhelming data from everywhere and gives commanders a clear, simple picture of what's happening right now. It helps them make better calls.
So, faster, smarter, more efficient? This all sounds like a massive advantage, right? Well, it's not that simple. Because this technology is a classic double-edged sword. So now we got to talk about the other side of the coin, the incredible promise versus the very profound, very real dangers.
The trade-offs are pretty stark. On the one hand, you get faster, more accurate decisions, and maybe even fewer human casualties, which is great. But on the other hand, you've got brand new ways to get hacked, huge questions about accountability, the risk of an algorithm just being plain wrong, and some really, really tough ethical questions.
Let's just zoom in on a few of those risks. Data poisoning is a scary one. Imagine an enemy secretly feeding your AI bad information so that it fails at the worst possible moment. Then there's escalation. If it's just robots, does that make it easier for politicians to use force? And accountability. I mean, who goes to jail when a robot messes up? And finally, you have the black box problem.
Which brings us to what might be the toughest question of all for military leaders. How can you, as a commander, trust a life-or-death decision when you can't actually understand how the machine came up with it?
This shakes the very foundation of the chain of command.
Yeah, there's actually a name for this dilemma, the transparency trust paradox. Basically, the smarter and more effective an AI gets, the harder it is for us to follow its logic. But for it to be useful in a war, a commander has to trust it. It's a total catch-22. And now we have to talk about the elephant in the room, lethal autonomous weapon systems, or LAWs. Yep, these are the killer robots you hear about. We're talking about weapons that can find, identify, and take out a target all on their own, with no human pulling the trigger. And as you can imagine, there's a huge debate raging at the UN right now about whether these should be banned entirely.
So, where's this all going? What's next? Well, let's look over the horizon, because this arms race is creating some new forms of conflict that are frankly a bit unsettling. We're talking swarms, space, and, yeah, minotaurs.
Okay, so the first big leap is swarm technology. Forget one lonely drone controlled by a person thousands of miles away. I want you to picture thousands of small, cheap, AI-powered drones all working together, coordinating on their own, to completely overwhelm an enemy's defenses. It's like a hornet's nest, but way more high-tech.
And this idea leads to a truly wild concept. There's a strategy document from the US Indo-Pacific Command that uses the actual phrase unmanned hellscape. Let that sink in for a second. They're talking about flooding a battlefield with tens of thousands of autonomous robots in the air, on the land, in the sea, to stop an invasion.
So how on earth does a person command something like that? There's this new idea emerging called Minotaur warfare. The big shift is from human in the loop, where you approve every action, to human on the loop, where you just supervise the system. The AI becomes the brain of the operation, directing both robots and human soldiers. It's less about brute force and more about dominating the flow of information. And if you thought this was all contained to Earth, think again. The battlefield itself is expanding into orbit. AI and autonomous systems are making space a legitimate arena for conflict. We're already seeing countries practicing satellite maneuvers that a US Space Force general called dogfighting in space. Yeah, that's a thing now. So after all of this, we're left with one final, lingering question. As we hand over more and more of these incredibly consequential life and death decisions to machines, what is the ultimate human cost? What does that do to us? It's a question that we're all going to have to face sooner rather than later.
There are no easy answers to that question, but if you really want to get into the nuts and bolts of the architecture behind this incredible global shift, we highly recommend the book AI Factory: Architecting Global Supremacy. It's a fantastic deep dive. We've put a link for you in the description below. Thanks for joining us.